I want to talk about trust. The reason why I want to talk about trust is something that I believe that it lies very close to my heart. It's very vital in every successful startup in history. But for me, it all started with how come everybody talks about trust, but not how about you can build it, how you should manage this trust. Because it could take a whole lifetime to build trust, but it only takes seconds to lose it. And it's really painful when you actually experience this. Trust can't be bought. It's simple as that. You can't just go out and give people money and say, trust me. You actually have to earn it through hard work, dedication, and you actually have just have give it time. Give people the chance to trust you. Show people that you care. I think a lot of people resonates with that. You need to be honest. And one thing, you need to value long-term relationships. This is about your partners, your investors, people around you. And one thing I've actually learned a lot is that even though the world expects you to be tough, it's allowed to be vulnerable. One thing, I'm not the man of many words. I'm more of an action guy. I like to execute. So talking about feelings is not actually my strongest suit. But yeah, so how did it start for me? For me, my very first memory of trust was actually my grandmother. She lived with us when I was children. Yeah, she was my best friend, my biggest supporter, even though I did a lot of wrong stuff. She was always there, ready in my corner to tell me what I should have done, or if she felt that I was about to give up, she would be the opposite. She would fight for me, even though she knew I was wrong, and just help me to rebuild myself. And yeah, she was a strict lady, but she was a great lady who also were there when I needed her. Because when when you're little, you don't actually know what's right or wrong, so you need these kind of people around you to tell you. But one thing, when writing this, what I found out is not only did I trust her, but she trusted me. Because she saved all her money at one secret spot. Nobody knew about it until she actually passed. But I was the only one who knew where she was hiding this money, and I was allowed 30 years ago to have 10 kroners. 10 kroners 30 years ago, that was a lot of money. And I bought a lot of candy every day after school, and nobody knew. Not even my parents. So that's really nice. So yeah, so this is all how it started for me. The wish to become a trustworthy person for everybody around me. And I'm always been a person who gives a lot of trust to people because I believe the good part in people always. My wife calls me naive, but it's important for me after understanding what long-term relationships actually means. So ever since, I've been working tirelessly to be there when people need it, without asking anything in return. And this is how it passes by. So yeah, so as I grew up, I somehow managed to find a lot of great friends. My social circle is not that large, but I have these great friends who has been through with me during COVID, all that stuff, and it's over 30 years ago when I met them. During this, somehow, I found a girlfriend over 13 years ago. The story ended with me getting married. We have 3 kids, as you can see. We're expecting our 4th. But the thing about my wife is she basically took my grandmother's place. She's one of those who can actually give me very clear feedback on what I did right, what I did wrong. And the best and probably worst part of her is she doesn't sugarcoat anything. She gives me exactly what she means about it, and that's probably one of the many things I respect about her, that she's able to give me, even though, yeah, I say sorry a lot. So it's really nice to have one of these type of people who can tell me. So yeah, having children, it gives another depth of trust. No longer am I trying to have people to trust me, but now I suddenly have 3 kids that basically blindly trust me because they call me dad. So it's really nice to see how the journey of trust is passing by through my children and how they look at me and just basically trust that I picked them up at kindergarten, or I'm there when they need me, or they need to wipe after going to the toilet. But yeah, so before we even delve into further how trust actually has a spot in startups, um, has anyone here given any thought on that you actually need to not only have people trust you, but you also need to trust yourself to execute on your own ideas? Because when you start this, you're probably alone, or you only have one other person with you, building a company. And yeah, when I flew earlier this month, I somehow didn't have music on, and that's when I actually heard. Have everyone heard what the stewards at the airport saying? If anything happens, take on the emergency mask on yourself before helping others. So how come we expect people to trust us if we can't trust us ourselves? And yeah, trust is great, but trust can also be very painful. And that happens when we experience mistrust, right? It's something nobody wants. It can happen. It can happen many times. As I said, I'm a naive person. It can happen all the time. But when it happens, you actually have to just trust yourself and bounce back. You don't have to give up, humanity to keep going on. And it's, of course, very easy to self-doubt when this happens. And in hindsight, it was probably very clear. So you need this type of people who can give you feedback at all times and not be afraid of hurting your feelings. Because without these people, you can't be, balance on the fine edge of keeping your feelings away from getting hurt, but also not get too egotistical. Because if you only get good feedback and not about the bad things you're doing, you won't get better. Nobody, I think, would like to follow a leader who's doing things in self-interest. I think that's a given, but it's always important to mention it. And I believe trustworthiness is probably one of the best attributes you can ever have on your personal CV. We can do a lot of great things, but if you're not trustworthy, it doesn't make sense. So yeah, it's vital to find out what makes you thrive, like your values, your motivation to push through when things get tough, because it will get tough building a startup. It took me years that I wasn't even a different person when I was at work or at home, because my motivation and my motivation and values were the same, just in a different context. At home, I want to be there for my wife and kids. At work, I want to be for my coworkers and investors. And yeah, somehow they trust that I have the bandwidth to deal with everything at work and everything at home. Some of you have probably seen this before. I shamelessly stole it from Simon Sinek. He has a lot of great inspirational talks. This one comes from one of the talks I like the most about trust, where he had interviewed the US SEALs about how they actually select people, that it was more important for them to have people who are medium performers but has high trust than high performers with low trust. It makes sense. It's about life and death. But this is also about your startup. You need to trust people to actually scale this. Being a co-founder myself, this resonates a lot, because you need to have a lot of good people around you. You hear investors about A players attracting A players, but they only talk about the dimension, like the high performance people. I myself is like a medium plus performer, high trust. And it's possible, but I believe that if you don't have the soft skills needed to build this trust, it doesn't matter if you're good, because then it's really difficult to trust people to build stuff and execute on your idea if you don't trust people. So yeah, what I want people to get from this is give people a chance to get your trust, build the safe environment around you so that people actually can feel that you trust them, because if people feel that you trust them, the performance goes up. So it's a win-win situation. And I truly believe what goes around comes around. And yeah, as I mentioned, value from long-term relationships can't be bought. We have had struggles in the startup. It's when things go bad, you really start to see the value of those relationships, people helping you out. And lastly, if there's anything I want you to take from this, just be yourself, basically. Don't try to be somebody else, because because YOLO, you only live once. You don't need to use your whole life to pretend to be somebody else. So use that to your advantage. Believe in yourself, believe in your partners, believe in your supporters, and strive for great feedback. And it's only when you truly trust people you can actually scale yourself, because that's probably one of the most difficult things, to give responsibility that you prior had and give it away to people. And when you do it, I promise you, as the talk said, you and your team will be able to move the unknown amounts of mountains that lies ahead of you with ease. Thank you.